Well, the hour being 1 o'clock, I'll call this groundbreaking matinee meeting of agenda and priorities meeting this 6th day of July, 2020 to order. We have an agenda before us. Is there anything you'd like added or deleted to that agenda? No? No, nothing? All right. Would someone like to move we adopt?
I so move, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. We'll start off with 3.1, which is a COVID-19 update.
Thank you, Your Worship. As of this morning, ECC will be meeting just on Wednesdays. We scaled back our meetings just due to our working through the risk assessments. But leading up to today, the focus has been on the Aquatic Center risk assessment, and we have Trish and Don here to speak to you on the next agenda item. Also, just a few notes, the Central Alberta Crime Association is hosting a bicycle registration event at the fire hall, and we talked about that this morning, if that would be appropriate, and we're allowing that to occur. Staff are also talking about the arena operations and working through that big plan for the risk assessment. There's a lot of examples associated with both the pool and the arena risk assessment, so we have lots of material. And also to note that the transfer station will open on Wednesday, back to regular schedule. I think this Wednesday is the first Wednesday. And that's really the report, Council, if there's any questions.
Any questions? Okay, would someone like to move the CEO's report?
I'll move, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barkley, all in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. Moving on to 3.2, Mr. Becker is the Aquatic Center reopening plan. Fill the pool. Floor is yours.
So just to lead in, Council, so the Aquatic Center risk assessment is completed. Obviously, significant changes from the traditional operation. Thought it'd be best if Don and Trish came in with the information, answer any of your questions, as you'll be seeking questions from the community if you approve this plan. So put it over to you guys.
I'm going to let Dawn present, as she's the one that did the majority of the legwork, so I can't take much credit for it, but be able to answer questions if need be.
So basically, we've reduced operating hours, just mostly due to staffing and the design of our facility. So lane swim, we have 7 to 8, then a bit of a break in between to clean, and then we put a senior time in from 9 to 10. I was hoping that would alleviate the lane swim, so the people that have to work early can go. Then we have to clean again, and then do a stent of lessons, and then do a lane and taut swim because we have the zero depth area that'll open it up a little bit there. Then we have to clean again, and swimming lessons, try something new and do just an advanced and intermediate and see how that works, just on stroke correction. Clean again, then we'll have a lane and taut swim again. Swim club's going to rent the pool from 4 to 6:30 now, so that will be a little bit different on your sheets. And then do a lane and taut swim from 7 to 8. So try and open up as much as we can, but because we can't do an entrance and an exit, it's really hard, so we have to make sure that we clean in between uses.
Don, can you outline that entrance exits system?
So what we're planning is on the right-hand side coming in, and then they have to pre-sign up for their time usage. So lane swim will only be able to offer for 6 people at a time, so basically 6 people for an hour. Then they'll get changed. We're asking that they come in their swimsuits and that their swim attire so that it's a quick in and out of the change room, so we actually have time to clean. And then they'll exit out to the left-hand side. So we're not asking people to remove their shoes because that's easy. If we're cleaning that much, we'll keep on top of that. Also, then we don't jam up the front as much. With swim club, we can put swim club back to back with the lane swim, because swim club is not going to use the change rooms at all. They're going to use our viewing area, just get ready to swim, and then they're going to exit out the side door. So then that way they don't interrupt or mix with the public at all. And then for sharing equipment, I had some extra stock that I kind of hold on to. So we'll put that up for sale for anybody who wants to buy their own swim gear. Then that way we don't have to worry about sharing equipment. Otherwise, we have procedures in place so that we can disinfect after each use. And then we have rental spots. Instead of public swims, we opened it up for rental slots, because then the co-families can then rent a spot, and it's actually ends up being cheaper than doing a public swim. And then that way we don't have to worry about the numbers and about the 2-meter distancing.
So I believe, Mayor and Council, that the intent is that this is a starting point only. As we transition into this, we'll wrap up programming accordingly. So it could be as early 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but it
Could be.
depends. Don't want to speak for you, Dawn and Trish, but this is a starting point just to get into the new routine of cleaning, et cetera. So it's just a starting point.
Well,
Is that fair?
and certification, because with COVID coming in, a lot of our certifications got interrupted. So I don't have the instructors that I would have had if we wouldn't have had the closure and stuff like that. So we have to get them finish their training, and then we can open up a little bit more as well.
So, Your Worship, through to Dawn, just a couple of questions. That you said people will need to book to lane swim, so they would phone to book?
Yeah, so we kept it on paper. It's a little bit easier than mucking around with ActiveNet. And we're gonna put it so that they sign up the day before, so that nobody can just block the whole summer off, especially when there's only 6 spots available. And it's also a good way for me to keep track of who's dominating the space, so that if somebody's always on the wait list, then I can say, well, you know what, you've had the last couple spots, we'll give it to Bob. And it's also part of the request from the AH&S that we track who's coming in and out.
Okay. And then the cleaning, like, is that you doing the cleaning in between all this? Like, and what does that entail, like scrubbing the?
All the high-touch surfaces. So it'll be myself and mostly the guards that'll be doing it. I did buy a sprayer system to see if that'll cut down the time, so it won't be as hard. But it'll take some time, because the bathrooms are large. So the touch surfaces and making sure that'll be the front end all the way through.
Your Worship, through to Dawn, a couple of questions. On the rentals, you had mentioned that they can be rented by families. Can more than one family attend that time?
The cohort families that they're talking about, they can go ahead and do that, and we can have up to 50.
Up to 50?
Yeah.
Okay, and second question, you mentioned it was cheaper than regular rates?
If you look at our rental rate, because we're not changing the prices at all, right? So if you look at the rental rate compared to your drop-in rates, it should work out.
So what would be the rental rate for?
I believe it's 105. Don't hold me to that off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. And that's for the 4 hours, right?
For a full hour, yeah.
105 per hour. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor Romaine, through the delegation, just curious, what was your cleaning regime before? Once a day or twice a day?
By regulation, we had to disinfect once a day, so we usually did that midday, and then as needed before. So it'll tack on quite a bit of extra work, but it's doable, so.
Your worship, through to CEO Becker, is this anything that are we still tracking, like costs that we're incurring due to COVID? And so is this the kind of thing that we would keep track of?
Yeah, anything out of the normal,
Yeah.
we keep track through finance, yes.
Any other questions? No? Okay, that's completes your report. Don, Trish, anything you want to add?
No, on the same kind of lines as Dawn.
Yeah.
We went through it thoroughly and
Yeah.
spent a lot of time on it just to make sure we were hitting
And
all
are-
of the Alberta Health Services standards, and I think we're good.
Are we looking at a ramp up, like after the first week or second week, or
Once we
changes?
see how everything flows, that'll make it a lot easier.
Yeah,
And then also to see where the government goes on their restrictions as well,
Yeah.
right? Because they tend to
yeah.
change quickly, so.
So this is the starting plan for the time being, and we'll follow up. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I know there's lots of people looking forward to it.
Yes.
You'll be busy for the first bit anyways. Okay, thank you, Mr. Becker, for bringing that to us. Do we need a motion to accept that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Would someone like to move, we accept the
Also move.
update from the pool opening supervisors? Councilor Reberger, all in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. All right, moving on to 3.3, council committee appointments. We got a new man on the table here we gotta get some work for.
It's a big discussion, your worship, and we better get the moose on the table.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hill.
Sorry, Don.
Now, I'm not just quite sure how you want to deal with this.
So Your worship, council, so yeah, this is obviously due to the by-election and potential to reallocate some of the committees over to Councillor Harrison. Are we able to pull up the previous appointments prior to the by-election, Vanessa? Just to take a look at where Councillor Boss sat and just see.
To
So
start
this would
off
be
with,
appropriate time in advance to regular council meeting next week if you want to make some adjustments on your committee appointments. This would be the time to have that chat. Also, coming up in October, you will go through your organizational meeting once again and review this also.
Your worship, through to CEO Becker, I know mine was Cape that I took over, so more than welcome to pass that on to Councillor Harrison. I know he was on the AGM meeting the other day, and also I believe he would also be an alternate on the chamber. I think Mayor Romaine was put on as an alternate at the time.
yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So would it be just appropriate just to walk through and you guys would
I
know
think-
what you've taken on through the by-election?
Certainly.
So again, as Councillor Barclay stated, Cape, so you're willing to free that up, and obviously would need some acknowledgement by Councillor Harrison as well to participate on that committee.
Yeah, and I could be the alternate if Mayor Romaine doesn't want to.
So Jean, you want to remain as alternate? Is that what you said?
Well, I'm assuming you don't want the alternates.
Yeah, well,
So what I'm hearing is Councillor Harrison with alternate Councillor Barkley for Cape. Carts, Councillor Carrots, alternate Councillor Hill. Central Alberta Regional Waste Management Commission, Councillor Rieberger, alternate Mayor Romaine.
So I did take this one over from Councillor Boss. It's 2 meetings a year, one of which is coming up right away. I can stay on there if you'd like, or it'd be, I've done it before, so if you want me to finish this one off, I can finish it off. Or,
I would suggest maybe you do if there's only one more meeting before October,
yeah,
because by the time I get up to speed, it would be, that's fine.
okay. And then maybe put Don down as the alternate.
That's fine, and I'll attend the meeting with you and, yeah. Waste.
So I'm hearing remain Councillor Rieberger, alternate suggestion is Councillor Harrison. Mayor Romaine, is that okay with you?
sure. No, that's fine.
Community Services Standing Committee, Councillor Rieberger, alternate Councillor Carrot. Transportation Committee, Councillor Hill, alternate Councillor Carrot. FCSS, Councillor Bates, alternate Councillor Barkley. Chamber, Councillor Barkley, alternate Mayor Romaine. Historical Society, Councillor Rieberger, alternate Mayor Romaine. Joint Use Committee, Councillor Rieberger, alternate Mayor Romaine. Innisfil Library, Councillor Carrots, alternate Councillor Hill.
So your worship, through to CEO Becker, can I just interrupt? Did Mayor Romaine want to stay on those as alternates, or
Well,
would you?
I would prefer if others,
Yeah, because I
Yeah,
think
because it-
Councillor Boss was, he was the chamber alternate,
Okay.
I know.
yeah,
Okay.
I think all of those were,
I think Mayor Romaine took over all the alternate ones from Councillor Boss. is
yeah, pretty much,
we
I
did.
think, yeah,
If I recall.
just for the,
Okay, so Chamber will be Councillor Harrison, alternate.
That's fine.
Historical Society, alternate Councillor Harrison.
That's,
Joint Use Committee, alternate Councillor Harrison. I think we're pretty much caught up there, I think. Into the intermunicipal development plan, we have our Mayor Romaine, Councillor Bates, Carrots, Hill.
So, Your Worship, to the CAO, that was the only thing I believe I took over from Councillor Boss, and I'm not possessive about it, so I'd certainly give that up.
which one is that guy?
Intermunicipal development.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe since Councillor Boss left that they've even met, because I've never been involved in it, so.
okay, sure.
So it's not like I haven't picked anything up, so that would be a good one.
Okay, so change of Councillor Bates to Councillor Harrison. Regional Water, Mayor Romaine, alternate Councillor Bates. Emergency Management, Mayor Romaine, Councillors Hill, Rieberger, Carrot. MPC, Councillor Bates, Barkley, Carrots, alternate Councillor, or Mayor Romaine. Parkland, or PCPS, Councillor Hill, alternate Councillor Barkley. Parkland Foundation Housing, Councillor Barkley, alternate Councillor Bates. Regional Library, Councillor Carrots, alternate Councillor Hill. Policing Safe Community Committee, Councillors Carrots, Hill. The RD Mug, Councillor Bates, and alternate Councillor Rieberger. Regional Wastewater Commission, Mayor Romaine, alternate Councillor Rieberger. And SDAB is Councillor Rieberger, alternate Councillor Hill.
So did, all, Councillor Harrison want to look at alternate to the MPC in my place?
Sure, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, with that, your worship and council, we'll bring back to you a formal report for next week. You'll formally make these reappointments next Monday.
Okay. Is that, any other suggestions? No? Okay, then we'll work with that. I'll have CEO Becker get back to us with a final for consideration.
Okay.
Do you need a motion?
For information, please.
Would someone like to move?
I'd so move, your worship.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. All in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. All right, let's move on to 3.4, delegating grant funding decisions. CEO Becker.
Thank you, worship. So this report and attached policies come to you when there's a chance that council is confirming to have pecuniary interest and cannot achieve quorum. This can occur with any nonprofit, local organization, but to simplify the conversation, we could look at the golf course as a good example, as occurred last year when there's talk about potential pecuniary interest at that given time, and they requested a small corporate sponsorship opportunity for the town. So with that recent conversation amongst council, administration did seek legal to help to best manage when council declares or perceived pecuniary interest and cannot achieve quorum. So you cannot achieve your 4 council members. Brownlee LLP was engaged with this review and has issued 2 separate policies with slight differences between the 2 policies. So what they did was they took the current community grant policy and made some slight adjustments to it to allow you to work towards those items I mentioned. So in basic terms, Brownlee states that when council declares pecuniary interest and quorum cannot be achieved, council has the ability to delegate its authority to another body, with that being the Community Services Standing Committee. At the same time, not delegating your ultimate role as decision maker as council. So the current community grant policy delegates some decisions for recreational, sport, and cultural activities. So the policy as it is currently written gives the committee decision-making powers for requests up to $2,500 and recommends to council anything over and above $2,500. So what Brownlee, but also onto administration, is requesting that council give direction on what policy best reflects the vision of council. So besides the policy adjustment, if you choose to make adjustment, the terms of reference of your procedure bylaw also require some adjustment. So your procedure bylaw, also attached to that procedure bylaw, is terms of references for your different committees, with that being the Community Services Standing Committee. So there is a recommendation that there's some slight adjustments to your terms of reference to put some of the authority back into the Community Services Committee, if that's what your desire is. So just outline some of the revised policy changes. Reflective of both policies drafts, the preamble and objectives and purpose changed in the 2 aspects. Town may provide funding instead of will provide funding. So that's an easy, so it gives you the ability to make decisions, whereas will is that you are making a decision or to provide funding. So just softening the wording to put the decision back in the decision makers. So again, may versus will, 2 strong components from a legal perspective. So removal as also another change, removal as the committee as the decision maker for funding removal as the committee as the decision maker for funding, since there may be times where council is required to make the decision. So The current policy states that the committee will make the decisions, but at some points, council may be put in a position to make decisions. So the adjustment in the policy would be both committee and then also council has the ability to make that decision, not just the committee. Within the grant categories section, there has been some slight changes, more generalized or broadened slightly. With the addition of FCSS eligible projects, having the ability to be incorporated into that grant funding application process. So currently how it reads is FCSS programming will not be eligible for funding, although there's been instances where maybe the funding could have been through FCSS. It'd be prudent to advise the applicants to check out FCSS on that side, but it does not limit you that you'll not receive FCSS related applications. The eligibility, the funding is only available to community groups, although it does not take away council's ability to fund entities outside of town corporate boundaries. But this policy reflects that it is only for local community groups. Also in the current policy is that the applicant shall be heard, and now it's been loosened where changes to the requirement of the applicants may be heard. So it's not, if the committee requires to hear from the applicants, then that request will be made from the committee itself, not automatically coming before the committee for presentation. There has been some approval or some clarity in the wording of where the committee would decide on applications of up to $2,500, whereas the current policy states the committee decides on all applications. So just some wording, just to clarify, not all applications. They kind of contradict each other, that you cannot review all applications if it's over $2,500. So just some cleaning of the wording there. New policy states all applications for funding will be reviewed by the committee, and everything over $2,500 will be a recommendation to council. So, and I'll show you that specifically into the policies here shortly. So how this would work is if council cannot achieve quorum, then the application is returned back to the committee for review. So that could be for any allotment of request. So we're not saying anything over $2,500. You may decide we are in conflicts, that we need to have a decision made on this. It would go back to the committee for review. In the case that the committee cannot achieve quorum due to disqualification or pecuniary interest, then the terms of reference is adjusted to allow you to appoint temporarily 2 committee members to help make that decision. Regarding the terms of reference, the changes include the authority. A sentence has been added to be able to make decisions. So the committee is maybe a week on their authority, but what the terms of reference is stating that the committee does have the ability to make the decisions up to $2,500, and if anything over and above when council cannot achieve quorum. Just to talk about the membership, 1 appointed councillor and 5 members at large. It allows council then to appoint 2 temporary members, as I mentioned already. So I wouldn't mind going, Vanessa, into the very first policy, section 4.1, and I'll show you clearly what the 2 differences are between each policy. So just to read this out, approval process, and that's really, besides a few words here and there, the shall or the will or the may, 4.1 states in this policy, applications will first be reviewed by the committee, who will prepare recommendations to council, and then forward the application and the recommendations to council, who will decide the application. So again, this one, the application comes in, the committee deliberates on the applications, and they'll make a recommendation to council. So just keep that in mind as the next policy, 4.1. The applications will first be reviewed by the committee. If the amount of funding requested is $2,500 or less, the committee will decide the application. If the amount of funding requested is over $2,500, the committee will prepare recommendations for council and then forward the application and the recommendations to council, who will decide the application. So this is the direction I'm seeking from you. First of all, do you like the policy framework and the application of the logic of this pecuniary interest? And if you do so, then which policy best reflects council's vision? So if there's any questions or comments?
Your worship, through to CEO Becker, a question with regards to the committee itself. It's one councillor and 5 community members, so that equals 6. Is that a bit of an odd number? Like most of our committees are 2 and 5? And I just look at the broad scope of this committee. I mean, it's huge. And I'm wondering if we're wise to change it to 2 councillors and maybe even bump up community member participation? Because the list is quite long, right? What they do, and I just thinking of a vote if it was ever 3-3.
Then it's defeated for sure.
And it
Yeah.
seems like all our other committees are all 2 council members, and
I believe, Your Worship, Councillor Barkley, there's room for a youth member as well. That's likely the 7th, but you're right. A committee should always have an odd number to best reflect a true decision. So it's really up to council if you want to, if the decision-making abilities is better with more, that's your discussion. But yeah, it makes sense to have a 5 or 7 or 9, whatever the number is, to make the best decisions.
Your worship, through to CAO Becker, you mentioned a youth member. What work has been done to try and solicit participation from the youth side? Have we been to the schools? Have we talked to their leadership courses?
Your Worship, Councillor Harrison, I don't recall so much on this committee, through the youth, the YPAC committee. There's been some engagement with youth in that regard. There was an initial attempt through the Police and Safe Communities Committee. There was discussion through our student resource officer in the schools for an appointment. We were unable to achieve that one for that committee, but we have not, I don't recall any push on a youth member for this specific committee.
Follow up then, has there been any interest from the youth on the committee, the youth committee, the youth advisory committee?
You know, Karen's coming in later. She'll be able
Oh.
to speak to you, but youth are quite engaged with that committee. Sir, do you know offhand?
Yeah, I don't believe specifically to do with the Community Services Standing Committee. My suspicion is that it hasn't been presented to them as an opportunity. I believe that committee, the Youth Action Committee, is still sort of getting up and running. As Todd said, there's been some great early engagement and willingness to participate from the youth. But my understanding, I might be incorrect, is that on boards and committees opportunities haven't yet been presented, but perhaps Karen could confirm.
Okay, thank you.
Just to comment, I don't believe I believe we had the discussion at a recent meeting about the youth member, and I don't think there's been one on the board for, was it 10 to 15 years, Stuart, something like that. It's been quite a while since we've been able to attract a youth member. The committee only meets once a month, and there's really, I would see that, I would like to try and get that youth member rather than another member of council. I don't think there's enough being done on the committee to warrant 2 council members. I don't believe, but I would definitely agree we should try and somehow attract a youth member would be good to get, because a lot of it is recreation and culture. It'd be nice to get that viewpoint onto the committee.
Just to comment, I think I agree with that. I honestly don't remember us pushing to try and recruit one. I certainly remember trying to do it with the policing committee, but it's kind of fallen through the cracks. I think maybe we could just try again.
certainly that, I'm sure it could be done. So that, other than that, is there any other comments then, if, other than we'll encourage, that youth representation on that committee might be an important,
I guess back to the question of which draft of this you prefer, I think the committee functions quite well doing the ones under $2,500. They have some good lively discussion and different points of view. So I would be in favor of leaving that decision-making with the committee, but that's just my vote.
so really no change in that policy then?
Well, other than adding the other portions to it, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? No?
I guess what I'm hearing is council's okay with slight adjustments to the policy and the terms of reference and delegating authority to the Community Services Standing Committee when council is declaring pecuniary interest and not achieving quorum.
Yeah. Okay. Would someone like to move we adopt that, those amendments to the policy?
I so move, your worship,
It'd be as per the recommended motion.
Okay, yeah.
as per recommended.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carrot. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. All right, on to 3.5. Lead mitigation requirements and procedure. Director Kennedy.
Thank you. So yeah, we were just coming forward to give a quick update on some work Terry's been working on here in regards to lead mitigation and the requirements Alberta Environment has actually put forward on the town here to meet over the next 2 to 5 years. So we have a PowerPoint to go up there. So yeah, go to the next slide. Get going too fast. Sure. Don't know how to use a clicker, but
I think you click it.
go to the next one.
No, that's not how you click it.
There we go. So, so in 2019 or last year, Alberta Environment adopted new guidelines for the management and elimination of lead within the Alberta's drinking water. As of January 1st, 2020, Alberta municipalities will be planning for and beginning a process of mitigating lead concentrations in regulated drinking water systems. So why is this an issue? So we pulled a little bit of just data for you guys in regards to why we feel this is, our environment's been pushing this forward. So inorganic lead compounds have been found classified as probable carcinogenics in in humans, based on findings in experimental animals. However, the cancer effects are not the main health effects of concern in humans. Lead is a toxic metal that can be harmful to human health, even at low exposure levels. Lead is persistent and it can be bioaccumulate in the body over time. This means that your body does not dispose of all lead ingestion, so it accumulates in your system over the lifetime. The toxicity of lead has been extensively documented in humans based on blood levels, or BLLs. Effects have been studied include reduced cognition, increased blood pressure, renal dysfunction in adults, as well as adverse neurodevelopment and behavioral effects in children. The strongest association observed to date is between increased BLLs in children and reductions in IQ scores. The thresholds between which lead is no longer associated with adverse neuro redevelopment effects. Some other background information for everyone, just in regards to the key facts from the World Health Organization. Lead is a cumulative toxicant that affects multiple body systems and is particularly harmful for young children. Lead in the body is distributed to the brain, liver, kidneys, and bones. It is stored in the teeth and bones where it accumulates over time. Lead in bone is released into blood during pregnancy and becomes a source of exposure to developed fetus. There's no level exposure to lead that is known to be without harmful effects, but lead exposure is preventable. So in 2019, Alberta Environment lowered the acceptable concentration of lead in regulated drinking water for the second time and extended the compliance requirements to include private infrastructure up to the end user's tap. That's a big one. So planning, Alberta Environment has tasked all regulatory water supplies or suppliers with mitigating lead in their distribution systems. They have given the suppliers a number of tools to help them achieve this and have given 5-year timeline from January 2020 to define objectives along the way. This means that as a regulatory water provider, the town of Innisfail must begin to involve the community in planning for the reduction of lead in our drinking water to acceptable levels to keep our population safe. Their directive is that testing be performed on residential dwellings at this time and that certain criteria be developed to where the tests are performed to gain a high-level view of where concentrations are above acceptable levels. So what does this mean? So what we've are proposing is the following steps. So a public education campaign needs to be developed and implemented to give Innisfail residents a heads up on what's coming. Why is it happening, and ask for their support and cooperation. We need to look at a standard operating procedure to develop the standardized testing procedures for the utilities department to follow. FOIP guidelines need to be set in place to protect residents while giving necessary information to all that need it. Testing and follow-up needs to be done in accordance with the new regulations. And a mitigation program needs to be developed based on test results and budgetary allowances. Just a couple notes in regards to this. Alberta Environment does not recommend replacing public side lead lines without private side being done as well. This does not seem to reduce and can actually increase the lead exposure significantly as it stirs up particles, which then migrate into the residential plumbing. If homeowners replace private sides and the public side needs to lead or is lead, we have to come up with a policy on how we deal with this, as it could be a huge budgetary drain to complete remediation on the public side for a large number of residents in a short period of time. So next steps, performing a system assessment. This consists of developing test matrix using age and location of the infrastructure, age of neighborhoods as well as homes, and the types of dwellings. Second is to prepare and issue a public engagement or education and engagement campaign. Information on why this is being done, how the testing will be completed, and how the results will be distributed. And then options for remediation is required along with the cost estimates. Third is a field assessment and testing. Due to our population, there will be 40 tests required to be done over the next 2 years. 20 of them in 2020 and then 20 in 2021. A certain portion of the locations chosen will be, I think are required actually to be of larger using or more or apartment buildings. As testing locations are identified, town staff will be contacting the residents to schedule appointments and perform testing. The town will be responsible for the cost of the mandated testing, which is approximately $200 a household, and all information gathered must be shared with the homeowner and resident in a timely manner. So then, depending on the test results, further testing may be required during and after mitigation steps have been taken. Having residents install filters which remove lead from the water is a temporary solution until replacement can happen. Removing lead service from the distribution system, both on the private and public lands, this would then be shared between the town and the homeowner. So that's quickly where we're at in regards to the lead mitigation. So open up to any questions.
Where do we stand with the level of lead lines in the public system?
That's still to be determined based on these. That's what this whole deal is to start with. We do know that some areas, just south of 50th, around between 49th to 47th, somewhere in that area, we know that we do have some lead line, 2 houses. Whether we have it on the public side, I don't know in all cases, because some of our mains have been replaced. But the way they're doing this testing is to kind of, it's not just going to be testing each house, it's actually going to be so that we get water in from the main, so that we see what's in our stuff as well.
Just out of curiosity, Terry, what the lead line, is it like the line from the main manifold or to the valve, town valve to the house is a lead
Some of them, yes.
product?
So prior to 1950-ish, there was a lot of lead put into service. It was never known to be a problem. There were smaller lines, but there's been lead used in the copper that is in our houses. There's been lead used in solder for copper.
Yeah.
It was used extensively to soften metal.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen this lead pipe. You know, lots of copper, but,
It looks a fair bit like copper, actually, if you're just seeing the outside of it. It's just a little bit, it looks like it's tarnished.
yeah.
Your worship, through to Terry or Stephen, the cost, an estimate, you say that it's going to be shared if we need to replace some lines between the homeowner and the town. What would be the average cost for a homeowner, their half, or any idea?
So depending on the method used, if you can use a little bit less invasive, they push a new line in, then there's a lot less remediation on asphalt and concrete and stuff like that. It's just basically putting the new line in. That I still have to find out from environment whether it's allowed to leave the lead in. If it is not allowed to leave, if we're not allowed to leave it in, then we're gonna have to actually excavate everyone, or the homeowner will have to excavate their side and we'll have to excavate
So
ours.
I could assume that it could be quite expensive then.
Yes, for an average dig that we do now, if we have to replace from property to main, including the asphalt and concrete that we have to replace, we're looking anywhere from $7,000 to $15,000 a dig.
So the intent would be, if it is private and public, is that we would then get in, do our line, and then we, based on what we can find out, either do a push or pull for the resident in order to reduce some of the costs for the resident portion. But it all depends on what the findings, what we find out there.
And it can be reduced further if we're allowed to leave that lead in the ground. If we are, then we can just do 2 small holes and do a push for the whole line, 3 small, because we have to put the CC on the new line, so.
So that'll be all part of your assessment that you'll be looking at here over the next little while. Okay, thank you.
So, Your Worship, question, where I'm seeing 40 tests, how do you figure that out, like as to, obviously, the sky's the limit as to what you could use for criteria of how you decide where, like it says, some of them will be multiple units, condo. Environment has actually mandated a certain number for apartment buildings, a certain number for, neighborhoods that are within a certain age, a certain number for houses that are within a certain age. Even if it's a newer house in an old neighborhood, you can still get information about the mains and how the mains are like what kind of lead concentrations are in the main in an older house. So we pretty much decide based on their recommendations where we're gonna do this?
That's correct.
Okay, no, yeah, just curious, because obviously, yeah, unlimited combinations of what could be out there.
So how would we proceed? Would we, how do you start doing the testing? Do you test the lead content in the houses to start with, to see if there's traces, or?
So Alberta Environment has actually mandated certain, there's about 4 different testing types that they've mandated we use, so that they have a very strict matrix of how they'll be able to determine where the lead is, whether it's on the homeowner side, whether it's on the town side, whether it's both, whether it's in the main. So we have to do the testing within very specific guidelines set down from them. For each house, we have to determine approximately how much line is between the beginning of the house and the test point, so that we can account for that, and then how much line is between the CC and the house to account for that, and then from the main to the CC, so that then how much we would take for samples based on that.
Would the actual, like the houses that have copper pipe with lead solder, are they gonna show up?
They may.
Man, that would be a big one, that one.
But that would clear out based on, your first sample bottle would be based on the house.
Yeah.
The amount in the house. And then your second would be from your line coming in. So taking a certain amount first, and then
Do
the second one would show the.
calculate the difference, yeah.
Mayor Romaine through to Steve and Terry. This may be a little premature, but how do you plan to mitigate the homeowner that says, I'd rather have lead than pay the 15 grand for, because you gotta know we're gonna get,
Absolutely.
and personally, I haven't thought about this enough, but I don't know that it should be their responsibility.
So we have recommendations that we can give to them. Part of your choices later, I imagine, will be whether or not we would help out with that. One of the recommendations from AP is that we can either provide or suggest water filters that remove lead. There's hugely varying costs in those as well, and probably hugely varying success rates. But we aren't required to make them get rid of their lead.
That was my next.
That would be Alberta
That was my
Environment
next
if
question.
they
Thank you.
chose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your worship,
Follow
just to
up
follow
question,
up. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, to follow up to that one then, so then if it was determined that they had a lead problem and they didn't want to do anything about it, then does that become a known fact on their property for the future, or how does that work? So at this point, our requirements will be a yearly letter to them, reminding them that they have lead piping or lead in their drinking system, and that they should do something about that. I don't know where environment's gonna go with that after a while, but that's as far as, so far that I've got from Alberta Environment, that we must give them the information that is there, what the concentrations are, and we must follow up yearly.
And also, I guess that's where we get into that, getting clarity on the FOIP requirements, is getting that set out as well.
Obviously, it's a huge problem for every municipality. I would assume,
Right.
it's dangerous to assume that we're probably not worse than most, but, yeah.
Yeah, what we're hoping to achieve from this is actually getting some mapping in place, and we'll be able to identify areas of, just how bad or how good is it, what levels we are.
Yeah, Your Worship, more of a comment than a question, and Alberta Environment and Parks, they're great at mandating things and telling us we have to do it and giving us timelines to do it. And it's a big cost to municipality, and further to Councillor Carrott's question about the homeowner. It's a lot of money for some homeowners, $15,000. So I guess my comment would be, would it be prudent to start discussions with environment around a possible grant program, an incentive program, or something like that, a percentage of, whatever the cost might be to, if you do identify a lead problem? Probably premature, but just more of a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just comment as well that you could also potentially take that amount and amortize it over with property taxes over a number of years to lessen the blow, because if you have that issue with your property, it should be disclosed on a sale, and if you're not, you're opening yourself up to some pretty serious liabilities, I would think. So I think it's something that should be fixed and somehow needs to be accommodated. And to put a $15,000 bill on homeowners, for some that would be impossible. So need to find a way.
Just a quick note, just to kind of put it into perspective, the homeowner side of that would be quite a bit less than that. They wouldn't have the concrete and asphalt to remediate unless it was their own driveway or something. So it's basically just the digging or the push, and if it's the push, it would be much closer to $2,000 to $3,000 for their side of things. So.
Well, I guess that's where the FOIP thing comes in with it, whether it's private, I would think it would still have to be disclosed on the transfer of a title or a sale, but I don't know how the FOIP would come into that part. But any other questions? So what's the next step, Mr. Kennedy? Are we?
So what we are doing is producing a matrix and a mapping in order to find out what areas we're going to concentrate on. We'll get an education program put together and sent out to public. And then this year we would like to try, we're going to achieve the 20 tests this year. We'll base it either on area, or if we get some volunteers coming forward, maybe we can get some volunteer based on education.
Yeah.
Yep.
With a policy as well, Steve?
Correct.
Okay, so that would be the next step, I guess, to come back to us with a policy, how we would deal with it, and is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I think as they gather the information, a policy could be drafted for your review.
Yeah. Okay, well, would someone like to move that we accept this report for information? Councillor Bates, thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Terry and Stephen. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting can of worms, isn't it, once we get into that? Yeah. 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 Okay, well, I think we can do a roundtable discussion. Councillor Harrison, would you like to start?
Just your mic, turn your mic on, please, Councillor.
There we go. Thank you, Your Worship. I attended the fireworks show night before last, and it was a great show. The community stood up again, and surpassed last year's show, I think. It was very spectacular. I also attended via Zoom the CAPE Zoom meeting on June 24th with Councillor Barkley. As an attendee, it was their annual general meeting. There was 58 attendees, and had an address from Minister Furr. My first impression of the group there is I really think it's a powerful group. There's some real shakers and rollers at that table, and there's many of them. And I sort of asked Councillor Barkley after the meeting, like, why wasn't Innisfil part of that group? We're members, we pay our membership dues, but there was no representation at the directors' table. So, and maybe it was just because we didn't nominate anybody or we weren't voted in. But I really think there's a benefit if we are at that big table. They're doing a lot of great things in economic development. Like I've said, you know, for the $3,000 that it costs us per year to be a member, you know, I think with that we should try and get what I call a position of influence, and that would be as at the directors' table where we can actually influence some of the decisions that are being made. They have some training modules. I've mentioned them to CAO Becker, and him and the CAO and Stuart have been looking into them, so we'll leave that with them. And was there anything else that I missed, Councillor Barkley? No. No? So, and that's all that I had, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Reber.
I enjoyed my Monday off. I took in the fireworks, and the fireworks were quite good. It took a long time, but it took longer to drive home than to watch the fireworks. There's quite a few cars on the road. I do have a historical village meeting on Wednesday. Evidently, they don't break for the summer.
Good.
Yeah, as Councillor Harrison mentioned, was on the CAPE annual general meeting and agree totally with what Councillor Harrison is saying. I think for sure I would love to see him put his name forward if there's a director position open this fall at the AGM, and we're the one community that's really missing at that table around the directors table. They have increased their associate memberships from 10 to 20 in the last 5 years, so those are partners such as Equus that are around that table as well, and I think they're doing a lot of good things. Funding has been cut in half, so all the REAs across the province have had their funding cut in half, so we could see in the future some membership fees increase. I'm kind of looking at that right now, but obviously they've really cut back on operations, office space and that kind of thing to try to save some cash flow right now. And then this Friday, have a meeting, Parkland Foundation meeting. There's a few of us from the board getting together, and we're looking at potentially putting together a sponsorship package for the new Autumn Grove Lodge for things like artwork and barbecue areas and maybe paved path and that kind of thing around the new lodge. So looking forward to that.
House thing? Yeah.
It was July 8th at 1, 2, or 3 p.m., right, Vanessa? Yes.
Yeah.
Councillor Carrot, if you're interested, just reach out to Vanessa.
Okay.
We can get you scheduled in.
Thank you. Library board meeting, their summer reading program is going to start July 7th. Their relaunch for Monday to Friday was started on July 2nd, I believe, from 10 to 5. They're going for summer hours. They're just going to see how they can mitigate those hours. Is that right, Megan? Yeah.
Monday to Friday, 10 to 5
For now, yeah. Later, as we move forward. Limited staff, really, at this point. They'll start low and see how they can move forward. I watched the fireworks as well. I was asked, and I thought they were great. They do a really good job. What is the budget for our fireworks? Thank you. No MPC tomorrow. That's all I got.
Okay, Councillor Bates.
Okay, since our last get-together, we've had a little time off, but I attended the FCSS meeting. We did allocate the surplus funds to the Wolf Creek Primary Care Network with, I think, dementia kits, and the family school wellness programs got the balance. I also attended the citizen engagement and the fireworks. I didn't realize it was that economical. I thought it was a little more. So we got a lot of bang for our buck. This week I plan to attend the Autumn Grove tour and the 13 Ways presentation. Question, have we heard anything recently on the solar farm startup? Is it imminent or?
They've actually been interconnected to the grid for about 3 weeks
Ooh,
now. Yeah. So it was about the third week in June that they connected.
so as far as we know, it's all going well?
As far as we know, yeah, I believe.
Haven't seen any sparks golfing.
I believe communications will be going out to the group, of a formal announcement, getting all the details.
Good, thank you.
First time I noticed it was on, with the radio when you're going by it, goes all crackly right about at the poles where they, yeah, it's a distinct.
I think you need a new truck there, Jim.
My Dodge doesn't do that.
I didn't, maybe,
It's like a double whammy.
maybe you don't have FM radio in your truck.
All digital. Serious radio.
It's a newer thing, that FM. Councillor Hill.
Yeah, yes, your worship. On the council front, have not had a whole lot on the go. Did touch base a little bit with some of the minor, like with minor football. They are going to be starting up a few practices, and they are going to be allowed to have one opposition team to kind of just scrimmage with over the season. But other than that, not too terribly much. I do see that the historical village has got their trees planted. It looks really good in there, and that's been a huge, I think that's been probably a big sigh of relief for the historical village to actually get something back up. And yeah, that's about it for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I too took in the fireworks the other night, and it was just so disappointing not to have our July 1st day. I'm sure Glenn was bored out of his mind because he didn't have anything to do. But anyways, that was good. I've got a water commission this Wednesday. 13 Ways, is that Friday? Thursday? Yeah. Carry on that, but and then I took in a 50th wedding anniversary party on Saturday. It was my own. So Bev and I had our little 50th gathering at the golf club. So, but no, I think that's about it. Quickly go around the room. Stephen, you got any projects you want to just update on?
Sorry, I was just gonna add, the 61st, they're starting up there.
Yeah, we started last week there at catch basins. We'll be starting this week with the forming and spring line for the curb on 61st. You got my mic, Steve? Sorry, we need a mic.
Sorry, Steve.
Sorry. So yeah, 61st is going, started last week. This week we'll be starting string line, the west side, just starting portions, dealing with the landowners the best we can to get businesses to keep going. 38th is slow. It's been slow. The weather's been really tough on the contractor to get any progress. Moving forward on 52nd, the other major capital we had, with the landscaping starting this week, as well as the putting the fence back up. 42nd Ave trees got planted, so looks really good. Yeah, I think other than that, moving forward.
Alberta Transportation has still got to recover 2A down, put a finish cap on that, right?
There's sections that they worked on, I think, on the weekend quite a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are still moving forward. It's not the full 42nd, but they
Oh, I
are
thought,
portions.
or 50, no, what is, 2A? So is that 42nd Ave? Is that what it is? Okay. 42nd Ave, I saw it on the plan, it looked like they did have, we're recovering it right to the, or is it just past that intersection where it loops back to the country lodge on 50th?
Yeah, so that most of it gets done. I think there's just a section
Or
that's
52nd?
not done.
Yeah. Anyways, I had a few complaints about the mill cuts on where they're, joining into the old asphalt and stuff, but
Yeah.
just tell people to slow down.
Yeah, it was in pretty rough shape on
Yeah.
Friday. They did get back to us right away in regards to getting it fixed on Saturday, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Thanks, Steve. Heather, have you been on holidays? Ah. Johnny, you got anything new for us? No? No? Megan? Right. Yeah, that recycling the green box is back in service on Wednesday. Ours is Wednesday. Stuart, you got anything?
Yeah, just a couple of brief updates just on things going on in my department that were directed by council. The one being the Innisfail Ski Club. Council had asked us to reach out and engage. We've made an attempt at first contact, left a message last week, so we'll hopefully have an update for you on that one by Monday's council meeting. And then the other item was just on the downtown market discussion. We are in talks with Sundance Realty and some other stakeholders about advancing that for this year as a pilot program. So there's a group discussion taking place at the moment, but the first and I guess the next step is to engage some of the business folks in downtown to get their thoughts on it and see if they would be on board for something like that. So again, hopefully have some more information to give you pretty soon. And final thing, I seem to have missed my invitation to the mayor's anniversary party over the weekend. I don't know, got lost or?
There was an age limit that you didn't qualify. You had to be over 60. Okay, Vanessa? Nothing? Todd? No? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I guess I'd entertain a motion to move in camera.
Your worship, I would move that we move in camera.
Thank you. Take a 2-second break or what? Yeah?
Don, you didn't take offense to this?
No, not at all. Yeah. I appreciate the thought. We'll see you later. Yeah, have a good one. Yeah.
See, I've got 1 foot headed that direction.
Some of the other counselors told me I should be calling you just instead.
There's no, seeing as it's not Zoom, there's no point of other people chiming in through.
So was this being live streamed then, or does that stops as soon as we go in and gather then?
Yeah, we just